Hello friends, acquaintances, and enemies of all ages. My name is Combat Bird, and today we're going to be taking a look at one of the strangest games I have played in some time. Killer is Dead, a hack-and-slash action game developed by Grasshopper Manufacture Inc., the same developers that brought us games such as No More Heroes and Lollipop Chainsaw. We follow Mondo Zappa, an amnesia-ridden assassin who takes his targets out using a massive katana and a cybernetic arm. Mondo and his assistant Mika begin working for a government-funded agency that takes contracts for assassination. After Mondo's first few jobs, which included not only killing a monstrous woman named Alice, but also killing the assassin that Mondo took the place of at the agency, he ends up coming into contact with a man named David. The interactions with David begin stirring up some of Mondo's memories, and the story really begins to take shape as we recover bits and pieces of what happened in Mondo's past, and what it all has to do with the present. The game has pretty simple controls that are very reminiscent of games like No More Heroes, Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, and so on. You run around slashing enemies, building up a combo as you go. Dodging last second allows you to unleash a massive amount of damage, and you have a couple of sub-weapons at your disposal with various strengths. It's all very familiar, but at the same time it can be very punishing to new players. You really have to learn the timings of that dodge if you want to have any chance of succeeding. Mondo can be leveled up over time using the resources dropped by Wires, the game's main enemy. This can upgrade your sub-weapons, techniques, combos, and so on. Killer is Dead follows a pretty typical format here, and it's no different for the levels. We have a mission to select with a variety of options. You have your normal story progression missions, which usually involve you fighting through waves of enemies as you traverse the level, with the occasional puzzle or two, all leading up to the big boss fight at the end. Then you have the challenge missions, which can have you defeating large amounts of enemies, scouring a level for collectibles, or various other things. And lastly, you have the gigolo missions, where Mondo has to try to seduce a woman by showering her with gifts and staring at her. But not when she's looking, that'd be creepy. Only do it when she looks away. Yeah, these missions didn't particularly interest me, which resulted in me not playing them until after I finished the game. But guess what? These missions are the only way to get the other sub-weapons, something I never considered. So I played through the entirety of the game using only the base sub-weapon. Now, looking back at it, I don't think it mattered too much. The gun Mondo starts with is incredibly strong and can one-shot basic enemies if you shoot them in the head, and the other sub-weapons seem not great. Now, what would a hack-and-slash game be without likable characters? Mondo himself is cool, calm, and collected. He's got a James Bond secret agent vibe, what with a variety of tech, skillful combat, and of course his love for women. His English dub is also done by Patrick Sates, the same man who does Kenpachi from Bleach, Frankie from One Piece, and a million other big names. Next, you have his assistant Mika, a somewhat cliche, clueless anime girl type of character. She cares for Mondo so much and would do anything to help him, even putting herself in danger if it makes Mondo's life easier. She's also a bright ball of sunshine that helps bring some positivity into this terribly corrupt world. And while we don't get to learn quite as much about them as I would have liked, we also have Brian, the man who owns the agency Mondo works for, and Vivian, Brian's second chair. These two are pros and have done their fair share of assassination. It's really interesting to play a game where from the beginning to end, you have characters who are above you in almost every way. And lastly, we have David. While all of the assassination targets are interesting, David plays a major part in the plot, and the first thing I thought when I saw him was, why is your name David? He's just so weird and interesting. David's also very confident, the perfect type of bad guy. The kind that wins even when he loses. And he's voiced by Liam O'Brien, the guy who plays Yasuo, Gaara, and once again, a million other characters. Listening to these two speak is ridiculous when they have such iconic voice actors. Okay, so far Killer is Dead sounds like a decent game, right? Well, it is, but it also has a huge amount of issues, and sometimes it seems like the developers just made really strange decisions. The story of the game isn't entirely obvious at first. Once you understand what's happening, other things start to make sense, but Killer is Dead didn't really care about you understanding what's happening. Pre-warning for anyone interested, there will be spoilers from this point on. You've been warned. Honestly, even just trying to explain the parts of the story that I did earlier in the video is a difficult thing to do. Looking at it as a whole, it's not all that complicated, but putting it into words is hard. Throughout the world, there's this thing called malice, which is basically pure evil. It overtakes those who kill, making them evil, or at the very least bringing out the evil within them. In Mondo's case, this is enhanced, as the cybernetic arm he uses absorbs the blood of his enemies, which then allows him to do his execution moves and use his sub-weapons. The people who work at Brian's agency tend to go down this route, hence Mondo having to kill the person he took the place of. And that person? A man named Damon, who was hired by Brian in the hopes of killing David. It's just this long line of hire a guy to kill a guy who we hired to kill a guy. Despite his arm increasing Mondo's intake of malice, Mika is his ball of sunshine that helps keep him grounded and stable. Those are the basic ideas in Killer is Dead. And as we slowly recover Mondo's memories, we find out that David is actually Mondo's brother, and that he not only killed their mother, but is also the one who cut off Mondo's arm initially. And as I said, when you break it down, it becomes more simple. Mondo's an assassin who lost his memories. Upon regaining them, he realized that David, his brother, is the source of his problems, so in an attempt to get revenge, he tries to kill David. That, in turn, corrupts Mondo, and the cycle continues. Everything else that is confusing isn't necessary for understanding the plot, but is instead just a bunch of weird details and quirks of the world. Oh god, even just reading this line from the wiki is confusing. Following each execution, a piece of the target's dark matter and their blood is absorbed by Mondo's arm, causing him great pain. He is also tormented in his dreams by Dolly, seeing flashbacks of Moon River playing with him as a child with a strange blue unicorn, and David attacking his home, killing his mother and cutting off Mondo's arm before being left at the Brian execution firm by the unicorn. Yeah, I'm not even going to try to go into that. Killer is Dead has some other issues as well. A lot of the gameplay issues it has feels like something that would be a more common occurrence back in the PS2 GameCube era. There are an immense amount of loading screens that just pop in and out of nowhere. Sometimes you'll go into a cutscene, walk for 10 seconds, and then suddenly you're hit with a loading screen, which in turn leads to another cutscene. This is especially prevalent when Mondo is executing his targets. I get that they want you to feel like you're the one doing it, but having a cutscene lead to a loading screen just so that I can hold the right trigger for 2 seconds in-game just doesn't really seem worth it. The game also tends to have an occasional frame rate drop. Now, this could be my PC, but it really shouldn't be. While I certainly don't have the best PC out there, I've not really had this issue before with games that have had a much steeper requirement. Here's some basic footage of BioShock Infinite on high settings. Nothing crazy, but Killer is Dead is just so much more basic. I also tested the game without recording to see if that would help, but no luck. I think the game might just be poorly optimized, at least on PC. Next up, we have some more basic issues that, as I said before, were much more prevalent on the older console generations. The camera in this game feels wonky sometimes, and has a habit of going behind something while you're fighting so you can't see anymore. This happens all the time, and it bothers the hell out of me. The controls also have a few problems and/or strange choices. Not having the ability to jump isn't all that bad, but it'd be nice to have so that we could pull off some more intricate air combos. Crouching, on the other hand, you can do, and all you have to do is hold the left trigger, which pulls out your gun, and press the right thumbstick. It's so incredibly awkward, and you can't move while crouched, so there were virtually 0 points in the game where this was useful. And lastly, I don't know whether to take this game seriously or not. No More Heroes had an obvious emphasis on comedy, and it used that to help make the game a better experience overall. Killer is Dead has moments of comedy, and sometimes it feels absolutely ridiculous, but at the same time it feels like it's taking itself very seriously. And I end up not knowing whether to laugh along or question why there's humor during such an intense moment. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's hard to follow, but more that the game itself doesn't seem to know which of these two things it wants to focus on, leaving me to believe that Killer is Dead has a bit of an identity issue. Overall, do I regret playing Killer is Dead? No, not at all. It was a pretty fun time. But if you were looking for a good hack and slash game, I definitely recommend Bayonetta or Devil May Cry first. And if you were looking for an edgy, funny boss fight game, go play No More Heroes. Alright guys, that is it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and as always, have a wonderful rest of your day.